Hey folks, this is Kalani. We have a whole bunch of class changes, buffs and nerfs coming this week which should help bridge the gap between the best performing specs and the ones currently at the bottom of the barrel. There are also some new sources of catch-up gear that you can use to get your ults all geared up faster and easier, but they may not be worth your time and effort depending on how much of a rush you may be in. And then some of the new meta achievements have had their requirements reduced quite drastically. There's a lot to talk about, so let's break it all down in this week's WoW News video. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Let's kick things off with the class changes coming with the next weekly reset. Almost every class has seen some updates, so you should be a bit more powerful or less powerful next week, no matter what you play. For the Death Knights, Blood will see some nice buffs for the Deathbringer hero talent tree, Reaper's Mark initial and stacking damage has been increased by 25%, Exterminate damage is up 25%, and Wave of Souls will see a 25% buff as well. So Deathbringer should be doing a bit better for Blood next week. Frost Death Knight will see some adjustments as well, Obliterate damage and Frost Strike damage will be increased by 12%, but Breath of Sindragosa will see a 10% damage nerf. So less damage will come from your breath windows, but some part will be made up with your other abilities. Moving on to the Druids, Resto has a very quick buff. Swift Mend will see a 25% buff to its healing. For Feral, Rip, Rake and Rampant Ferocity damage are all being increased by 10%. Apex Predator's chance to trigger against multiple enemies was increased slightly, and then Strike for the Heart was buffed up to a 15% increase to the crit strike chance of various abilities, up from 10%. Guardian will see the same buff to Strike for the Heart, but that's it for Druid this week. Hunters made the list this week as well, but it's not good news, I'm afraid. Survival will see some hefty nerfs to their most powerful build. Merciless Blow damage has been reduced by 15%, and Pack Leader Vicious Hunt damage is being reduced by 20%. The dev notes say that these nerfs should keep the build or playstyle competitive while reducing its dominance. I guess we'll see how things go after these nerfs are in place. Mages have quite a list of changes for the Frostfire hero talent tree to try and bring that up to par with the other options. For Fire, Fire Mastery will grant 2% haste up from 1, Isothermic Core Comet Storm effectiveness was increased up to 200% from 150%, Frostfire Burst damage has been increased by 25%, Frostfire Infusion damage is up 50%, Excess Frost cooldown reduction was increased to 10 seconds, and Ashen Feather Phoenix Flames damage bonus was increased up to 50%. In addition to those changes, Pyroblast will see an 8% buff, and Meteor direct damage will be increased by 25%. So quite a few buffs for Fire, and a lot of buffs for Frostfire. Frost will see most of the same buffs for Frostfire, including Fire Mastery, Isothermic Core, Frostfire Burst and Infusion damage, and the Excess Frost cooldown reduction buff. Up next we have the Monks, with a bunch of buffs for Windwalker. Conduit of the Celestials' Strength of the Black Ox damage was increased by 100%, Flight of the Red Crane damage is also up 100%, and Courage of the White Tiger damage will be increased by 35%. Fists of Fury damage is up 20%, Blackout Kick damage will see an 8% buff, and Flurry of Zuen damage is up 40%. Courageous Impulse now increases the damage of your next Blackout Kick by 200%, up from 125%. Shadowboxing Treads now increases the damage of Blackout Kick by 20%, up from 10%, and it causes additional Blackout Kicks at 80% effectiveness, up from 70%. So there are some huge buffs coming for Windwalker Monks next week. As a quick little side note, Mistweaver will see the Courage of the White Tiger damage boost as well. Paladins also made the list this week, but not for good reasons, I'm afraid. Protection will be seeing quite a few nerfs, which isn't too surprising really with how powerful it's been recently. Lightsmith's Divine Inspiration's chance to proc an armament was reduced by 50% for protection, so that's definitely not ideal. Divine Guidance damage was reduced by 20% for protection only, and then Forge's Reckoning damage was reduced by 15% for protection only, so Lightsmith won't be quite as powerful for proc Paladins moving forward. In addition to those nerfs, Refining Fire damage will see a 10% nerf too, so this may knock protection down a peg or two. Priests have a couple of buffs for Holy. Both their Holy Words will see a 25% boost to their healing. It's not much, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. Rogues have a couple of buffs for their Deathstalker hero talent tree. It's not doing quite as much for Subtlety versus Trickster, so Deathstalker plague damage will see a 45% boost, and Black Powder damage will be increased by 20%, so this might shake things up and give you some better options to play around with. Now, all three specializations for Shaman are going to see some updates. For Elemental, Farseer Ancestors will see some buffs. Their Chain Lightning damage will be increased by 30%. Their Lava Burst damage is up 15%. Latent Wisdom increases Ancestor spell damage by 25%, up from 20%. Routine Communication, chance to trigger, was buffed up to 8%. And Maelstrom Supremacy now increases the damage of Earthshock, Elemental Blast, and Earthquake by 15%, up from 8%. Restoration will see some of the same buffs for Farseers. The Chain Lightning and Lava Burst damage will carry over, and then for Enhancement, all Maelstrom Weapon Spenders damage was reduced by 8%, so some buffs for Farseer, especially for Elemental, and a small nerf for Enhancement. And then the last class with changes this week are the Warriors. Colossus will see quite a few buffs to their overall resilience. Mountain of Muscle now reduces damage taken by 5%, up from 2.5% for both arms and protection. And then Dominance of the Colossus now causes enemies damaged by Demolish to deal 10% less damage to you, up from 5%. So it's not really any damage buffs, which I'm sure would have been preferred, but staying alive longer is very important as well. That's all of the class tuning changes for this week so far. All of these adjustments are scheduled to go live with the next weekly reset, so that's Tuesday the 26th for North American realms, and that Wednesday for Europe. We may see some additional changes just before the reset. They do like to sneak these things in on Monday sometimes, so keep your eyes peeled if you didn't get anything in this list. You never know what might happen. Now, in other news, we have some new catch-up gear to take advantage of that can make gearing up your ults much faster and easier. You can now purchase these Harbinger's equipment chests that contain a random piece of item level 593 veteran gear. That'll set you back 350 Valor Stones each, so they definitely aren't cheap, but if you have plenty of Valor Stones and no real upgrades to work towards, you can spend them on some gear for your ults. These boxes are warband bound, so you can send them to any of your ults that need an extra boost of gear, or just pop them in your warband bank so any of your ults can withdraw them as needed. You do need to have at least 1000 Mythic Plus rating on your character to buy these boxes, so you may need to clear a couple more Mythic Plus dungeons if your score is a little below that. Now, new ways to gear up your ults is always going to be nice, but if you're not in any particular hurry to gear them up right this very second, it may be worth waiting until December. On December 17th, patch 1107 will go live, which brings a whole bunch of new content our way, but there are two really important gearing options that become available as well. The first one is just another source of catch-up gear. It's the same upgrade track as those Valor Stone boxes, so you won't be getting much better than veteran gear for your ults from this new source, but you won't have to spend your hard-earned Valor Stones, and you can choose which pieces of gear you want to buy. There's going to be a new currency called Flame Blessed Iron. It seems to be quite plentiful if you're taking part in the new content and exploring Siren's Isle, so that's probably much easier to get your hands on when compared to Valor Stones, especially when you consider you may want to keep your Valor Stones for upgrading gear, and then being able to pick and choose which items you want to buy and equip will make gearing up way faster than relying on random loot boxes that might just give you 5 cloaks in a row. So if you aren't in any hurry, waiting until 1107 and this new catch-up gear might be an easier, faster and cheaper way to gear up your alt army. The other super important feature coming in the new patch is another Onyx Amulet style ring. Everyone will get this ring very early on, and instead of stats, the ring's power comes from a variety of gems that you can collect and use. The ring can hold 3 gems and you can swap them around whenever you want, so this should end up being a very powerful item to give your ults a bit of a power boost, but it's also probably going to be the best in slot ring for everyone for the end of Season 1, and maybe even for a good chunk of the start of Season 2. You can also upgrade it to item level 639 very easily, so all of your characters will be able to get this ring pretty much for free, so I wouldn't waste any time whatsoever right now trying to get 2 good rings for any of your characters. And then the last little update we have for this week is the new Battle for Azeroth meta achievements coming in 1107 have had their requirements reduced quite dramatically. Combating the corruption used to require you to kill one of every type of corrupted creature, now you only have to kill 10 types. Some of the rares have been removed from the list of required kills for the rare meta achievement. It's Not a Tumor only requires you to destroy 100 corruption tumors down from 1000. Junkyard Architect was reduced down to unlocking 30 blueprints. Outside Influence now only needs 15 quests from the visitors in Mechagon, and Sound Off had one achievement removed from the requirements. The Island Expedition related achievements were also nerfed, most of which now require you to get 15 of whatever you need, so Explorers Rescued, Battle Pets Obtained, and Champions Slain, and then Tell Me a Tale requires 10 quests instead of all of them, so these achievements will be much faster in general. So if you've been working on these achievements to get the rewards as soon as the patch goes live, you might want to double check the achievements again to make sure you aren't working any harder than you really need to. But that's all of the updates we have for this week, so that's it for this week's WoW News video. Are there any classes or specs that you feel still need a lot of attention and some good buffs or nerfs? How do you feel about the new ring coming in 1107 and how similar it is to the Onyx Amulet that we saw in Dragonflight? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see the names floating by on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description, or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.